You may think this is a practical, sensible and rational estate car, especially in this burgundy red metallic.
But it really isn't. Behind the reserved exterior, it has a big twin turbocharged engine and four-wheel drive. And despite this, it can trundle along on pure electric for 31 miles and emits just 76 grams per kilometre of CO2 under current measurements. The only thing that hints at this car's sheer lunacy are the lime green brake calipers and badges.
It's the Porsche Panamera E-Hybrid Sport Turismo. Bit of a mouthful, isn't it? But it's also hugely powerful, there's a big boot, and it seems to have fantastic eco-credentials. But is it all too good to be true? Well, I'm going to be finding that out in this video, but before I answer all of those questions, make sure you subscribe to the channel and press that little bell icon so you're notified exactly when one of our videos goes live. First things first though, and it's the styling. Now I think the Sport Turismo is a fantastic looking car. It's more shooting brake than a estate car, to be perfectly honest with you, but what with its higher roofline and squarer rear end, it looks a lot more balanced than the standard Panamera. And don't worry, you don't have to go for lime green brake calipers. You can replace them with equally lurid bright yellow ones if you so wish, and you can remove the badge at the back altogether. But this one down here, you can't. So if you don't like lime green, you're stuck with it. Although I'm sure if you asked nicely enough, your Porsche dealer would be more than happy to remove it for you. Now up front, and you get the same interior as you get on the standard Panamera, and it's hard to believe the design is nearly 3 years old because it still looks ultra cool and contemporary. Now for the E-Hybrid model, you get little lime green accents on the Sport Chrono pack on the dials in front of you. In fact, the dials are worth a mention because in typical Porsche fashion, you get the rev counter directly in front of you, and it's a proper clock. Now it's surrounded by two little auxiliary screens, and there's a multitude of different information. The one on the right is the most configurable. You've got your map for the sat nav and various different features like a lap counter, G-force meter, and all sorts of different things. Now it's mated to a 12.3-inch touchscreen in the centre of the dash, just like the standard Panamera and the Cayenne. It's a very simple system to use. It looks great as well, and in this particular car you've got a whole load of different features which you can configure, like in the climate control. I can play around with the vent here, I can open it and close it. Look at that, fantastic. I could play with that all day, but I haven't got time. And if we go into the car mode, we've also got the ability to put up the spoiler and put on the sports exhaust as well. Fantastic. Now, in the Panamera, you've got this center console here. Now, at first, it can look quite sort of difficult to use, but after a period of time, it's actually very straightforward to use. And when you press something, you get this lovely clicky noise as well. Look at that. So satisfying to use. It really is the simple things in life. Now, storage-wise, well, there's quite a lot of it, actually. There's two big cup holders here, one larger one here, one smaller one there. Under here, there's a place to put your mobile phone, a USB charging port. The door bins are of a good size, and the glove box is of a really good size as well. But really, the overriding impression in here is one of quality, because the Panamera's dashboard and the doors and the leather and all the plastics, they feel so expensive. It has to be, really, because this car, with all of its optional extras, is £158,000. It's a lot of money, isn't it? But when you're sitting here, it really does feel it.
The Panamera 4 E-Hybrid Sport Turismo gets 19-inch alloys, sat-nav with Apple CarPlay, electric front seats and partial leather trim, while the Turbo S adds 21-inch wheels, smart-looking walnut trim, full leather upholstery and the roof lining trimmed in Alcantara.
Back here, and it's surprisingly luxurious. Now these seats I'm sitting on are almost as comfortable as the ones in front. They are really squidgy and very supportive. Now, one thing that is worth noting back here is that in the standard Panamera, you can go for the executive package, so there's more room and there are two individual seats. In the Sport Turismo, because it's deemed to be the more practical Panamera, you only get this rear bench seat. But having said that, you're not really going to fit a middle person back here. Despite there being a seat belt, the person's going to have to haul themselves over this centre console, and they're going to be very chummy with the two people in these seats because there isn't much room. What there is, however, is plenty of headroom. Despite there being this glass panoramic roof, headroom is pretty good, and that seat is set up in my driving position, and I'm just over 5'10", and I've got loads and loads of knee room. Now, as this is the more practical version of the Panamera, we've got Isofix points in both of the outer seats. We've got ventilation controls. Here we've got heated seats, two USB charging ports, and if we flip down the centre armrest, there's a couple of cup holders, and the whole thing can actually come down, so you've got a great ski hatch when you go on your winter holidays. Round to the boot, and as you'd expect, you get an electric tailgate as standard, and once it's lifted up, you can see that there's an enormous elephant in the room, isn't there? Because there's a whacking great big bag in the centre of the boot. What does it hold? Well, if I just unzipper it, you can see that you've got your charging cables. Now, as standard, Porsche give you a 3-pin, domestic 3-pin, and also an industrial socket as well. And when you plug it in with the other end, even if you use this one or that one, it's going to take you 8 hours to fully replenish the batteries. However, if you pay £500, Porsche will upgrade the maximum charging capability from 3.6 kilowatts to 7.2 kilowatts. And when you connect this car up to a home wall box charger or an on-the-street charger of 7 kilowatts or more, the charging time is cut down to just over 2.5 hours. Right then, let's put these charging cables back in this bag, shall we? Onto this should be a degree from Oxford University on how to put charging cables into a bag. Let's get that out. And you can see that you've actually got quite a good sized boot. Now, it's only fractionally larger than the boot you find in the standard Panamera, but what you do get is a little bit more height. It's a nice square shape. Some lash down points, which is quite nice. There's a little 12-volt socket there as well. There's a different socket there, that's an optional extra, £116 to be precise. Unfortunately, you don't get any underfloor storage, because that's where all the car's batteries are, but the benefit of that and the high boot floor is you don't have to, there's not a large drop down into the boot. Let me just grab the Carbuyer suitcases, and you can see you can fit quite a lot of suitcases back here. If you want to fold down the rear seats, there's no latches in here. You have to do it manually from the seats. It's not too much of a pain to do that. And then slide this forwards, all the way to the front. Right, the two smaller ones, that's the middle-sized one, and the smaller one there. And of course, you're going to need to take your charging cables with you, aren't you? There we go, that slots in there, job done.
The Panamera E-Hybrid Sport Turismo uses a 2.9-litre twin-turbo V6 coupled to an electric motor and battery pack. In total, there's up to 462 brake horsepower and four-wheel drive, so the 0 to 62 mile/hour dash is covered in just 4.6 seconds.
Now, the 4E Hybrid has 462 brake horsepower, and come on, let's face it, that's more than enough, isn't it? And it feels like a finely balanced plug-in hybrid, exactly what you'd expect from Porsche. Now, that car has a pure electric range of 31 miles, as does the Turbo S, but that is as much as the two cars have in common, because the Turbo S is a completely different story. Now the Turbo S comes as standard with a sports chrono pack. It includes that lovely little clock up there, but more importantly, you get this little rotary knob here which gives you access to your driving modes. Now let me just ramp this up to Sport Plus mode, so everything is in its spiciest, most finely tuned mode. And I'm going to put my foot on the throttle and sort of demonstrate exactly what 671 brake horsepower feels like. We're doing 60 miles an hour, put my foot on the throttle and, oh! Right, that's three figures. We're well into three figures there. Absolutely extraordinary. The acceleration of this thing defies belief. And that 4-litre twin-turbo V8 sounds absolutely marvellous. And I've got the sports exhaust system on, and it just sounds absolutely incredible. And I'm going to do it again. Honestly, a car has no right to be this fast. It's just too silly. Now this car is not just outstanding in a straight line, but it is absolutely marvellous in the twisty stuff. The steering is so precise and accurate. There's a lovely weighting to it as well. It's just typical Porsche. Now for the most part, you're going to leave this car in automatic mode, but if you want to take manual control, you've got the paddles on the back of the steering wheel, and the gearbox is a new 8-speed auto. It's not the sharpest tool in the box, but it's pretty damn good actually. Lovely. And the way this car changes direction is just super. It really is. Oh! And yeah, it can get its tail out. That 4-wheel drive system really does shuffle the power around beautifully. One thing that is worth speccing is the 4-wheel steering. Now, it doesn't come as standard on the Panamera, unfortunately. It's a £1,300 option, but it really is worth it because this is a big old car, and that extra agility that you get at low speeds, the rear wheels turn in opposite direction to the fronts, so town work is made a lot easier, and then at higher speeds the rear wheels turn in the same direction as the fronts, and it just makes this car, this big old car, just that little bit more agile, which really is needed. Now the more time you spend with this car, you can actually fool yourself into thinking there are no seats back there whatsoever. You just think you're in a 2-seater sports car. You could almost kid yourself you're in a 911. It's that good up here. Now I actually should talk to you a little bit about electric really, shouldn't I? Because this is a plug-in hybrid after all, and I should probably stop hooning around and take it out of Sports Plus and put it into, well, let's put it into electric mode, shall we, and talk a little bit about electric mode. Now you can cruise around in EV mode right up to around 80 miles an hour, which is pretty impressive. Now Porsche claim you can get 31 miles of pure EV range. That is a little bit ambitious. That is done under the old NEDC cycle, not under the new WLTP cycle. And to be perfectly honest with you, 21 to around 25 is probably what you will get. And of course that is ambient. Now we're filming this in mid-February. I charged this car up last night and with a wallbox charger, and I only got 19 miles, but really 19 miles is a usable sort of range, isn't it? Now the other mode is hybrid auto, and in this mode the power is constantly flittering between the engine and the electric motor, and whenever it sees fit, the engine will kick in, the electric motor will kick in. It's pretty self-explanatory really. It's automatic. It will sort out, it will work out the best mode that it needs. And when it flits between the two power sources, it's seamless. You really wouldn't notice which one it's using at any given moment. It's a really well integrated system.
Under current tests, both e-hybrids make for great company cars, as the Turbo S emits just 76 grams per kilometre of CO2. Make do with just 462 brake horsepower from the V6 version, and that slashes to 56 grams per kilometre.
But I'm going to put it back into Sport Plus mode because, come on, let's face it, this may well be a plug-in hybrid, but that electric motor is only really assisting that powerhouse of an engine. It's assisting it to give it more power. If you think this car is an eco-friendly one, you're in for a bit of a shock. Because that's all it is. It's not a finely tuned plug-in hybrid that just happens to have 671 brake horsepower. It's a lightning missile jet that just happens to have an electric motor. That's what it is. And I absolutely love it for that.
Whether you go for the V6 or the bonkers V8, you'll be buying one of the nicest cars on sale, not just a great plug-in hybrid. In reality, the V6 is all you ever need, and with the shooting brake body style, it's a classy and quirky alternative to a Porsche Cayenne E-Hybrid, or any other plug-in hybrid SUV for that matter. I shouldn't be recommending the Turbo S, but it's a wonderful piece of sheer lunacy. Enjoyed this video? Well, give it the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Give our Mercedes-AMG E53 estate review a watch and click for our luxury cars playlist.